What if summer became so hot that people could not sleep at night? So hot that crops failed, rivers shrank, and entire cities struggled to breathe. Now imagine stepping outside and feeling heat that seemed to come from every direction. No relief in the shade, no relief after sunset, just endless heat. But here's the strange part. The hottest summer ever wasn't remembered only because of the temperature. It was remembered because of what happened next. How did one season push millions of people to the edge? Why did forests suddenly become fuel, and what happened when the night stayed almost as hot as the day? The answers reveal a summer that felt less like weather and more like a warning. At first, it seemed like an ordinary warm season. People expected hot afternoons. They expected sweating sunshine and a few uncomfortable days. But then the temperature kept climbing and climbing and climbing. Weather stations began recording numbers that seemed impossible. In some places, thermometers crossed 45 degrees Celsius. Elsewhere, they moved beyond 50 degrees Celsius. Roads softened, rail tracks expanded, air conditioners ran nonstop. But a terrifying question appeared. What happens when the heat refuses to leave? Usually, evenings bring relief. This time, many nights remained dangerously warm. People opened windows, fans spun at full speed. Yet the air felt like it was coming from an oven. And that was only the beginning. Heat doesn't attack like a storm. There is no giant wave to watch, no dramatic explosion, no warning siren that everyone can hear. Instead, it enters quietly. A headache, dizziness, fatigue. Then confusion, then collapse. During the hottest summers ever recorded, hospitals filled with patients suffering from heat stroke. Doctors noticed something unusual. Many victims were not working outside. They were elderly people in apartments. Children, people sleeping indoors. Why? Because the body cools itself by releasing heat. But when the surrounding air becomes too hot, that system begins to fail. The human body becomes trapped inside its own heat. And then another mystery appeared. If cities were full of buildings, why were they sometimes hotter than the countryside? Concrete, asphalt. And steel absorbs sunlight all day. After sunset, they release that heat back into the air. Imagine a giant battery made of roads and buildings. All day it charges, all night it glows with stored warmth. They even gave this invisible phenomenon a name, the urban heat island effect. In some cities, nighttime temperatures stayed several degrees higher than nearby rural areas. That difference became deadly. People who expected cooler nights never got them. And while cities baked, something else was happening far away. Forests were drying. Weeks without rain, hot winds, dry leaves, dry grass, dry branches. Then one spark, maybe lightning, maybe a power line, maybe a small human mistake. Suddenly, entire landscapes were burning. Firefighters described flames moving faster than vehicles. Smoke darkened the sky. People hundreds of kilometers away could smell the fires. But the most frightening question was this. Why were the fires so difficult to stop? Because the heat itself helped feed them. Hotter air dried vegetation. Even more, fires released additional heat. That heat created stronger updrafts. Stronger updrafts pulled in more oxygen. The fire began creating its own weather. And then the summer grew even stranger. As temperatures rose, water disappeared. Reservoirs dropped. Lakes receded. Rivers that had flowed for generations became shallow. Boats became stranded. Hydroelectric power stations struggled. Farmers looked at cracked soil and asked a terrifying question. How can food grow when the ground is burning? Crops withered. Fruit ripened too quickly. Livestock suffered from heat stress. In some regions, harvests fell dramatically. And that created a chain reaction. Less food, higher prices, more pressure on families. A single summer was beginning to affect far more than comfort. Then came the nights that I would remember for years. Imagine checking the temperature at midnight and seeing 35 degrees Celsius. At 2 a.m., it is still 33 degrees Celsius. At dawn, it has barely changed. Without cooler nights, the body never fully recovers. Sleep becomes difficult, exhaustion accumulates, heat stress builds day after day. Researchers found that mortality often increased after several consecutive hot nights. The danger was not only the afternoon peak, it was the lack of recovery. And then people began asking a bigger question. Was this just a rare weather event or something larger? Across different countries and different years, heat records fell again and again. Some regions experienced temperatures never before measured in their history. Scientists compared modern data with decades of observations. The pattern was unmistakable. Extreme heat events were becoming more frequent, longer, more intense. What once rarely happened was beginning to happen more often. But numbers alone cannot explain the experience. Imagine touching a car door and pulling. Your hand goes away instantly. Imagine playground equipment becoming too hot for children. Imagine birds seeking shade during the middle of the day. Imagine power grids straining as millions. The air conditioners switch on at once. That is what the hottest summers feel like. After one of the deadliest heat waves ever studied, researchers discovered something unexpected. The greatest danger was not always the highest temperature. It was how long the heat lasted. A single extremely hot day is dangerous. 5 extremely hot days are worse. 10 days with hot nights become a completely different threat. The bodybuilding's roads, power systems, farms, and forests all begin accumulating stress. Heat becomes a slow-moving disaster. And that leads to the biggest mystery of all. Every record eventually gets broken. The hottest day becomes the second hottest. The hottest summer becomes a benchmark. Scientists continue studying oceans, atmosphere patterns, drought cycles, and greenhouse gases to understand how future heat waves may evolve. Some regions are planting more trees, others are redesigning buildings. Many cities are creating cooling centers and emergency heat plans. Because the question is no longer whether extreme heat can happen. The question is how prepared people will be when it does. So what happened during the hottest summer ever? Roads softened, rivers shrank, forests burned, cities stored heat like giant furnaces. People struggled to sleep, hospitals are filled, records shattered. But the most important thing wasn't the number on the thermometer. It was the realization that a season could change, how an entire society functions. And somewhere in the future, another summer may arrive that is even hotter. When that happens, the real question will not be how high the temperature climbs. It will be what happens when the heat stays. Because history has already shown what a single extraordinary summer can do, and the next record may already be waiting.